Rachel Nichols also gives the people what they want. She sat down with James Harden to do an interview, and he discussed, what else? The 30-point streak that he is on. Let's listen to James.
The scoring streak is obviously amazing, but it's just something that I had to do because of our situation, and we had all the injuries and guys in and out of lineups and things like that. So I think the streak just started happening, and then now it's like something to talk about. But it's not something that I'm really honestly focused on. Like, that's something that I have to do in order to give us a chance to win the game.
Interesting. There's a few things I want to discuss about that. First of all, is scoring 30 points a game something that James Harden has to do?
Yes.
Is it something that he's not focused on?
He's focused on it.
Because there's been a couple 31-point games, 30-point games, and I've learned from talking to you that players know where their numbers are at the end of a game.
Absolutely.
If you look at Russ's triple-doubles, I mean, he's doing something amazing, but there's a lot of, 10 rebounds, 10 assists. Do you think, he says he's not focused on it, but do you think he does what he has to get over that 30-point mark?
So this is a necessary evil for the Houston Rockets because the Western Conference is so stout. When Capella goes down, when CP3 goes down, when Eric Gordon's in and out of the lineup, the constant has been James Harden. And they're going to need him to score buckets in order to maintain in that stout Western Conference playoff race. So a regular season style and a postseason style, we all know are different. I hate that he has to apologize for being a prolific scorer, but here's the dynamic I want to share. There were times in Michael Jordan's career, Kobe Bryant's career, where people felt like they shot too much or accused them of being ball hawks.
Of course.
Same with Carmelo Anthony.
All great scorers.
All great scorers get accused of this. So now for James, a guy that's helped lead the Rockets to one of the better teams in the West before Chris Paul arrived. He's the reigning MVP. He understands that he can't be taking 40 shots a game and scoring 300 points that are unassisted, and they're going to advance in the playoffs. This Rocket team last year, in my opinion, would have eliminated the Golden State Warriors had Chris Paul not gotten injured. Mm-hmm. I know Trevor Ariza was out on the other side. I get it. I'm sorry. Andre Iguodala was out on the other side. I get it. But I still believe up the way they were up, and they missed 27 straight three-point shots.
That was their shot.
That's unprecedented.
They should have won that series the same way the Thunder should have won the series against the Warriors the year before.
Correct. But props to the Warriors. They found a way to close the deal and get it done.
At the end of the day, they win the game.
So for James, just look at it like this. The regular season is just that. The postseason is a different style where you can't ISO ball freely very often because defenses can go boxes and elbows, force you to be perimeter oriented, and every time you miss, they're going to get the rebound because they're on the inside. Mm-hmm. He understands that can't carry to the playoffs, but right now he needs to do what he needs to do in order to validate playoff position.
So Chris Paul is back. Clint Capella is working his way back. Do you expect him to continue this streak even with those players in the lineup?
No. I think the streak has now become a burden to him.
See, I'm glad you said that. And you said something else that was really smart. It almost is like he's apologizing. He never said, I'm sorry for going on this streak, but it's almost like he has to defend himself against the streak. Like people aren't saying, James, what an amazing streak you're on. What you're doing is unlike anything we've seen since Wilt the Stilt Chamberlain. Let's bow down to you and celebrate you. There's always like, yeah, you went on this streak, but it's like a yeah, but kind of thing with this streak.
And also, the other thing that's unfair to James Harden is you got to remember why I call him the most unique offensive weapon that the game has seen. Because he's the only guy at some point of his career that's going to lead the league in threes made, free throws made, total points, and the last one is really important, total assists. Mm-hmm. He's amongst the league leaders when they're operating at an optimum level. He'll give up the ball, okay? So for him to be a guy that when they're traditionally operating at a normal capacity, he's top 2 or 3 in the game in assists. So he'll pass the ball.
And Rachel asked some interesting questions to him, too, about his energy level and his fatigue. And whether or not this can happen, and how in playoff series, game 1, game 2 is when he really is at his best, and then he sort of tails off at the end of playoff series. Don't you feel like, and I hate to use this term, load management is important for James Harden, especially at this point in the season?
It's something that Mike D'Antoni doesn't necessarily use with his best players. You can go back to the Phoenix days. You can look at anywhere he coaches. He's going to play around 7.5 guys The reason why I say half, for those that don't know basketball terminology, that means one guy that probably plays around 12 minutes. So getting close to 8 players per game. And he's going to use those guys regular season.
But that's a playoff style rotation in the regular season.
Correct. Yeah. And so for a guy like James Harden, you know what you never get tired of doing? Playing offense. Nobody ever gets tired of playing offense. Now you start getting some defensive stances, you start taking some charges, all of a sudden you tired. Right?
Yeah.
So I think he can manage what he's doing offensively. Do a lot of gambling, get a lot of steals defensively, but preserve himself. But I think Mike D'Antoni and James Harden, the last handful of games of the year, hopefully they can validate some playoff positioning where they can idle him down some and get him ready for a long playoff run.